I woke up this morning and the first thing I got was a message. It was a 17-minute message from a client who has been invested in his suffering for a long, long time. He's 42, runs an incredibly successful business company, global company. And this morning he found joy actually over the last 24 hours. And I showered this morning. Can you not hear me? Yeah? I showered this morning listening to a 17-minute message of him waxing lyrical about the fact that he literally felt his heart open. He felt the light come in, and he has felt an emotion he has never felt in his life. I then listened to my next message, and it was a client who has vowed to learn the piano because it was just one of those, it was like a joyous target that we set for her lockdown. And she learned to play Fly Me to the Moon Stone. And I had a whole rendition of her playing and singing Fly Me to Moonstone. So that's how my day has started. So this big cheesy grin you've got here is really as a result of just having amazing clients and the work that we do. And I am knackered. And the reason I'm knackered is I have never, in 20 years of coaching, I have never ever seen so many people, taken so many people through a breakthrough in one time. I literally feel like an orchestra player, a conductor at the moment. I've got clients that have heard God. I have had 2 marriages dissolved this week with absolute the right time, the space for freedom. And I'm just sharing this with you because we're in the most extraordinary energy. Now, before change always comes chaos. So if you were one of the people who was on that level, you might be going through your precursor to the big shift. Okay, so please, what I'm going to ask you to do is really counterintuitive. Whatever you're feeling, even if it's really shitty, it is not bad. Okay, we've been so conditioned that if we feel anger or fear or shame or depression, that it's bad. It's not. It's your body letting you know that you've got some work to do. That's all. And I say your body, not your brain, because your emotions are held in your body. They are not held in your brain. So when I say to somebody, where do you feel that? And at the beginning, they usually say in their head, it's because they've just been cut off. They've cut themselves off from their body because they don't want to feel what they were feeling usually as a child. So at the last Coach on the Couch that I did with Rachel, I shared quite spontaneously a wound healing. Of course, I've got my little helper here. That was Lily. My wound healing from my birthday, and it was a huge success. It was shared by lots and lots of people. I've had lots of people contact me, wanted to work with me as a result. And I thought, well, if it works, I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to talk today about triggers, and I'm going to use an example of something that happened to me last weekend, so that you can really see, that you can really see it, how it works. Because I think if I can describe how it works for me, it will make more sense to you, because triggers can be tricky. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about triggers is because triggers are wonderful things. And I can actually do that until you're bored rigid, because all I can see in my head with triggers is Winnie the Pooh's Tigger bouncing along. So what are triggers, and why am I so excited to talk to you about them? Triggers are one of the most misunderstood feedbacks in personal development, okay? So do you know when sometimes you feel as though you can't get your words out, even though you know exactly what you want to say, but the words won't come, your brain won't find them? Or perhaps you know that if you press the send on that email, or you give that lippy response, you're going to create Armageddon in your life, but you just have to do it. And it's almost like a little demon possesses you. Or maybe you get really wired and tired and it's like fizzing in your body, a restlessness. Often when we drink the bottle of wine that we really shouldn't, we eat the box of donuts we really shouldn't, that we smoke the joint we probably shouldn't, do a couple of lines of Charlie we definitely shouldn't, do the whole box of Netflix, that's not a great idea. Those are some of the ways that you might find to understand that you are triggered. Okay, so what we tend to do is we tend to focus on the behavior. So, oh God, I've just eaten a box of donuts. I'm such a fat pig. I'm so, here comes the self-loathing, the self-attack. You're never going to be blah, 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 blah. Okay, and it can get worse. I had a client yesterday and her standard self-attack is fuck off, I hate you. To herself. She says that over and over and over again. Okay, and don't think that's unusual. It's not. You've all got a version of that. Okay, and that's called self-loathing. Now, the wonderful thing about triggers, because triggers are wonderful things, is that, I think you'd like that, Andre, is that when you understand that a trigger is something has catalyzed a stuck emotion in you to come up to the surface, okay, and you now have the opportunity to heal, okay? Now, most of the time, and I'm talking 99.9 recurring, people do not do that. They get the trigger, they feel uncomfortable, they feel an emotion they don't want to feel, and then they go through a cycle of the things that I mentioned earlier. And by the way, it could be playing the Game Boy, it could be exercise, there's a whole host of things we do to not feel what we feel. So what happened to me last weekend was I got a new patio umbrella, which I'm incredibly proud of. It's beautiful. It's completely impractical. It's not waterproof. It's probably not sunproof, but it's gorgeous. It's turquoise and it's got gold hearts and jinglies from it. And it's really Bali, you know, rosewood with gold inscriptions. The problem is that it's brand new and so it's really stiff. So luckily, my cleaner put it up for me. It was a joint collaboration. But of course, she wasn't here when it needed to come down. And on Sunday, there was a typhoon over here. When you live next to the sea, you get all the weathers are magnified. So now I've got my beautiful new Bali brolly, and I've got a hurricane coming as well as a typhoon. Slight exaggeration, but it was pretty rough. And I had visions of this brolly just shooting off and smashing somebody's window, or of course getting drenched and being useless. I couldn't get the bugger down. I tried everything. And if you've ever seen anyone wrestling a brolly, I tell you, it's a funny sight. And this went on for about half an hour. Anyway, I live next door to a footballer. We've got apartments and he's my next door neighbor. And the fact that he's a premier footballer somehow or other makes a difference here, okay? That's just my shit, not nobody else's. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'm going to text him and say that, you know, would you mind popping over and flopping my brolly? Anyway, I got a text back. He said, no, he's not coming. He's not going to do it. Now, he said, I normally would, but because of COVID, I really won't. At that point, I had a shame attack. My shame was that he thought I was luring him into my place and going to infect him with germs. And the truth is that we've got a back gate, so he wouldn't have had to come anywhere near me. He could have just jumped down because he's young and fit. So that was the shame, okay? But then there was the rejection. And I've got a rejection wound anyway. Okay, you still with me? So now I have literally gone from being, you know, queen of Moonstone, absolutely loving everything, in a nanosecond to feeling that small, completely and utterly flooded with shame. I am a bad person. He thinks I'm trying to sabotage him. I spent the next 2 or 3 days thinking how I can never see him again. I was literally planning strategies so I don't ever have to bump into him in the car park. Now that might sound really extreme, and I could see myself doing it, okay? And the reason I'm explaining this to you is that this is what you do. You do a version of this when you are triggered, okay? And everybody does. And so what happens is that when we're triggered, that's old emotion. So what was coming up for me was shame and rejection for me to deal with, okay? So I had to be nice to myself, but I was triggered. So my body and brain were dysregulated, okay? Now, when your body and brain get dysregulated, the logic center, the prefrontal cortex here, shuts down. That's why it doesn't make sense. So when your back is against the wall, when you have gone into some trauma response, and by the way, you're going to have the more trauma in your childhood, the less safety and nurturing and nourishing in your childhood, the more sensitive your trigger is, okay? So everybody gets triggered, but generally only people with complex or childhood PTSD have significant body dysregulation and can't re-regulate, okay? If you had nurturing, nourishing parenting, you would have been taught to re-regulate. The people that I generally know, we didn't have that. So we're still learning to re-regulate in our adulthood. That's the lucky ones, because most people are just running this cycle. And by the way, you will not heal it by running the cycle unconsciously. And this is really important, because people, you think about angry people. If releasing emotion healed it, angry people would be angelic, because they're raging all the time. They're, someone's cut them up, or the wrong thing's on telly, or the government have done this, or COVID screwed their life, or whatever it is, okay? So the proof there is that just by releasing an emotion, please don't be confused with thinking that's healing it. Does that make sense? Give me one of those if it does, and don't hesitate to give me one of those if it doesn't. Everybody's still with me? Okay, so Michelle, what do I do with an emotion that comes up and floods me if I can't just purge it and sprinkle it over everybody else? Because you see, when I felt the shame from the footballer, what I did, and what is very normal to do, because shame is such a debilitating emotion, it's designed to be absolutely hideous. It's designed to stop us what we really would like to do. You think about some of the things that in your deepest, darkest secrets you would quite like to do, but there's a little thing there called shame that just stops you. I'm not going to lie to you. I go into Chanel and I think, could I shoplift? And then the shame comes in and I don't. Isn't that right, Miriam? So there are things that you want to do that aren't the right thing. They're not in your value sets, and shame stops you doing them. So every emotion's got a positive intention, but we've stopped, many of us have stopped understanding the gift of these emotions. So when the shame came up, I don't want to feel the shame. And even though I practiced this religiously, it was so fast, literally. He said no, I was flooded with shame. So the emotion that we almost always put over shame is rage. So now I am fuming. How dare he say no? Does he not know I'm a little old lady living on my own? I play that card when it suits me, right? And then it starts. If only I had a husband, but of course I'm not good enough to have a husband. Can you hear the self-attack is starting to build up now? You're always going to be on your own. You're never going to be able to put up your own umbrella. On it goes. You're weak, you're fragile, you're getting old. Who's going to look after you? I mean, the threads, the tentacles, once you have a shame attack, are horrendous. But remember, your prefrontal cortex, your logic center, has shut down. But what's fired up is your amygdala, your fear center. And anybody that's ever slept in a hotel room or tried to get to sleep in a hotel room and the alarm goes off, you can put all the pillows over your head you like. You ain't going to get any peace. That noise just drowns every thought, every behavior out. That's exactly what's happening when you have a shame attack, okay? So when you are having a rage attack, you are almost certainly underpinning it by shame, okay? So you will justify your rage attack because he said, she said, they did, we didn't do, whatever it is, but you will justify your raging. You will behave in a way that is outside your value system. So you will behave like a bitch troll from hell. And then you're going to have another shame attack because you're going to beat yourself up once you calm down. That's called a big kahuna. And it's so predictable. So he said that the footballer says, no, I won't help you with your brolly. I have a shame attack. I then internally rage and I want to kick out. I want to go on Facebook and pick a fight. And politics is a great thing to do, or Twitter. Why do you think there's so many people raging on Twitter? It doesn't make any difference. Do you think anybody's rage attack changes anybody's mind? But if you say to somebody, why do you do that? They'll say, because I'm fighting for good. No, you're not. All you're doing is spreading your rage. And it's really important that we understand this. We've got to get away. Just cut that crap out of your life. It's low vibration. It will hurt you. But don't let your ego tell you that having a fight over your political views or your views on COVID or anything else is going to change anybody's world. It's not. Seriously, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I putting out attack? What are trolls doing? They're shaming people. Why are they shaming people? Because they don't want to own their own shame. It's a massive emotion, shame. Okay? So, where have I got to? So now, he said no, I'm tiny, my shame's flooded me, I'm now superseded that by internalizing my rage. And I knew I was doing it, so I drank a bottle of wine. What else did I do? I drank a bottle of wine. I felt wired. I ate carbs. I ate loads of beige food. I even had to go out to get it. I mean, you know, you're in trouble when you have to actually risk life and limb to go and feed your carb habit. I felt paralyzed. Now, this is the other thing. I wanted to attack something or someone, but I felt paralyzed. That's something else that a dysregulation will do. You can feel overwhelmed. And I didn't know what to do with myself. It's like a pacing bear, but I've got nowhere to go, which is quite lucky because in the old days, I did have places to go and I'd just create carnage. So the whole time, can you see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get rid of this energy that has now flooded me, because shame mixed with rage is a potent cocktail for self-hell. You're going to behave like a demon, you're going to feel like a demon, and you're going to operate from a place of self-loathing. So now you're speaking to yourself, or I was speaking to myself really badly, okay? Am I going to heal the shame by self-loathing and self-attack? Or am I going to hurt myself? Am I going to heal myself or hurt myself by that self-attack? Of course, I'm going to give myself more shame, more rage. So the content and the quality of your self-talk is going to dictate how you feel about yourself, how you act, and how long this dysregulation, remember your nervous system is dysregulated, how long it takes to heal. It took me 3 days to re-regulate, 3 days. Now, that's somebody who is, I could see it, I could witness it, but I couldn't stop it. And this is why I want you to understand, you can't stop it. because it's a nervous system response. It's a trauma response. So what I had to do is I had to forgive myself and allow myself the fact that I drunk wine, eaten carbs, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It's okay. Most of the time I'm really clean and on it. It's okay. And I just had to keep saying to myself, Michelle, it's fine. You've not hurt anybody. You're just going to walk an extra few miles next week. It's okay. And I really want you to take that on board, because whatever you do when you're dysregulated, you're going to hate yourself for. Whether it's pushing that email that you shouldn't have sent, or, you know, eating too much, or whatever it is, that is your trigger for self-loathing. Do not allow the self-loathing. Okay? So show yourself love and compassion. So anybody, some of you do the work, so you might already be guessing, and I want you to, if you're writing notes or think in your head, what were the gifts of that dysregulation? What was the universe bringing up for me to heal in that dysregulation? I told you very clearly, and I know some of you like a little bit of pop psychology. Think about what you thinking I was going to heal. So do you remember I said to you that it was shame, because I thought he thought that I was putting his health at risk, that I hadn't been considerate? So it was shame and it was rejection. So rather than focus on my reaction or the self-loathing, I had to go back into that first memory of feeling shame and rejection. Doesn't matter what that first memory is, just allow your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind knows everything, much more than I will ever be able to coach you to say, hey, go back to that memory. Your unconscious mind knows everything. Okay, so a few memories just popped up, and I was able then to go back to that place, to that time, and just do the self-soothing. You know what? It's okay. It is absolutely awful living as I was, in the shame and the rejection and feeling like this. But I can now see that it's a choice. You know, it's something that I can heal. So I went back as I was, and I talked to that younger me. I didn't try and make her feel better. And this is really, really important. Your job is not to cheer her up. This isn't the happy clappy club. You all know that. This is where we get real. This is where we get deep healing. Okay. My job is to allow her, give her permission to feel what she feels whilst I hold the space for her. Because nobody did that for you. Nobody held the space so that you could be allowed to feel your shame and regulate it, which is why we're all here today. Nobody coached or parented you, nurtured you through that awful feeling of rejection. Okay, that's your job to do now. So you show up for that younger self as the parent you didn't have. Now, that's not saying your parents were completely useless. They may have been, they may not have been. This is not about your parents, it's about you, and it's not about blaming anybody. That's just another form of shaming, okay? It's about owning your wound, your righteous wound. You came about this completely innocently. It's not your fault, so don't shame yourself for these feelings. But the dysregulation, that feeling in your body, is the one I want you to start to really familiarize yourself with. And it's awful. It's an awful feeling, okay? So when I say for you to allow it, to surrender, just let yourself feel it. And for me, it was 3 days. Don't you dare. 3 days. It took my body before it calmed down. The fizzing was phenomenal. And if I didn't know better, I would have then done something awful. Well, I say if I didn't know better, but this is where it gets really tricky, because what I did on day 2 was I reached out to a friend that I know is not nourishing or nurturing. Just think about it. I am triggered with rejection and shame. So why would I unconsciously reach out by text to a friend who I absolutely know, for all the years I've known her, if I'm lucky, I'm going to get a pretty indifferent one-liner? Anybody, again, I want you to start thinking about why I would do that, because this is what you do.
Because it's familiar, it's what you know.
It is confirming rejection and shame, the unlovability. So it is absolutely, as Rachel says, I unconsciously, and as I say, I really want to labor the point. This is my entire life. I live, eat, breathe, sleep. Some of you know, I'm on call 24/7 pretty much, doing this stuff and being with people with this stuff. And for me still to fall down that trap shows you how tricky it is. Remember, logic shut down. We're firing up from the fear center. Okay, so I took an action to unconsciously confirm my worst fear. I'm unlovable, therefore you must reject me. And that then makes me feel flooded with shame, because shame and unlovability for a human go hand in hand. Does that make sense? I want you to think, and one of the ways that you can apply this to yourself is go back over a couple of triggers that you've had. And remember, a trigger is where you've behaved badly. It's where you behave badly, that you blame somebody else for poking you into behaving badly. It's never anybody's fault how you behave, it's yours. It's your responsibility, okay? And the reason I say that is you always have a myriad of options of how you respond to somebody, always. So you can never say you made me angry. You say I felt angry, but nobody has the power, and nor should you give them the power to make you angry. Because now you're like a little dancing bear. Oh, I can make you angry, I can make you happy, I can make you sad. Well, good luck with that one. And it's not true. Nobody can make you feel anything that isn't already there, okay? So go track back. This is homework for you, should you wish to take on a mission, and at the triggers, and look at how you perpetuated them by, it would have been lack of boundaries. So you would remember, eat, drink, drug, shag, what if you're lucky, whatever, too much, okay? You're going to behave outside of your value system. And then you're going to, and self-loathing, and then you're going to do something to reinforce the emotions and the fears that the trigger brought up. Okay? And the whole time you're doing that, what is needed is self-compassion. And self-compassion is, hey, you know what? I don't know why he didn't want to put my brolly down, but it isn't about me, is it? I mean, I've only ever smiled and had a ridiculous conversation about football that I know nothing about over the dustbins. I mean, I can't possibly have offended him. It's just not. And what I did, I just text back to say, oh my goodness, no, I thought you might jump over the back gate, but I certainly didn't mean for you to breach any COVID rules. These guys get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. Of course, they're incredibly strict that they're not allowed to break any social distancing rules. So I made amends as much as I could. So that's the important thing to do. Not beat yourself up, just make amends. But then it was time for the self-compassion. But you can only do the self-compassion once your body has re-regulated. You can't do self-love in dysregulation. That's when you're in self-hatred, self-loathing. And please, everybody does it. And one of the marvelous things about my job is that people tell me their inner workings. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of case studies imprinted in my mind. And I've never met anybody that doesn't have an awful voice of self-loathing once it takes hold. And we don't talk about it. We all think it's just us. And some of the things I've heard people say to themselves have shocked me. And trust me, my self-loathing can be pretty colourful. I've heard people say you don't deserve to live, you are just a waste of space, you should die. This is what they're saying to themselves. So whatever you say to yourself, don't judge yourself for it. As quickly as you can, come into compassion. And compassion, when I first learned it, was nothing more than one of those slightly hippie and highly irritating phrases. I didn't know what self-compassion was. Of course I didn't. Nobody had ever shown me compassion. I had to learn it. I had to learn it right from the grassroots and up. And I tell you what it is. It means treat yourself like you're lovable. If you love somebody, how do you speak to them when they screw up? If you love somebody, what do you say when that person really doesn't like themselves? Do you say, yeah, you are right, you are a horrible dick? Or do you say, come on, you got some lovely qualities. Nobody's perfect. Treat yourself kindly. And the reason a lot of people don't do that, other than if we weren't taught to, is because there is a fear that if I'm nice to myself, I might behave even worse. So if I'm really nasty to myself when I behave out badly, okay, then what I'm doing, I'm punishing myself. And we always stop what we do, what we don't want to do when we're punished, don't we? That really works. So I really want you to think about evidence in your own life, not mine. The behaviors that you're still running, the patterns you're still running, the dysregulation, the triggers that you're still running, they're still there because you haven't healed them. And it's really clever, really smart. You think, I'm 59 years of age. I've been running these same patterns and triggers for the best part of 50 years. How the hell have I done that? I'm not stupid, but I've managed to do that without healing them. That's quite an art. But simply by going in and just saying, nobody showed you, Michelle. Nobody showed you kindness. I didn't have a physical touch or hug for 12 years. Now, that's called torture, but it's taken me to my last birthday to actually be able to own that fact. And that is one of the reasons why I have such an array of wisdom, because, the abuse, the more abuse you had as a child, the more gifts you've got once you heal it. Wisdom doesn't come from having a perfect childhood and being nurtured and loved. Wise people have scars. And you wear those scars like an absolute spiritual gangster. They are yours. They're your individual. Nobody's got scars like you. Nobody's got wisdom like you. And remember that your scars go down 7 generations, your wounds, at least. But you can change that. You can really change that doing this work. And it is that self-compassion. So, I've talked about, what else have I got here for you? I like to make notes just so I don't go too much of a tangent. The other thing, a massive thing about triggers. Triggers make people feel unsafe. When you want to isolate, and if you can't isolate, what you will do is you will numb out. And you will numb out by drinking, eating, all the things I've talked to you about before. They change your physiology, ability to feel, okay? When you are triggered, you have no protection. You are raw. And you are going to be pricklier than the prickliest of cactus. You are going to be a bitch troll, okay? Nobody's going to want to come near you when you are deregulated. Okay? So now you're prickly, therefore it's not safe to be around you. Therefore, in my case, I tend to take myself out of the system so that I can't risk damaging anybody, because It just literally will just come up. And then, of course, what have you done if you've acted out that prickliness? The reason you've done it, think about a cactus, it's to protect itself. It's to push people away because you don't have any skin. Dysregulation takes away your skin, your protection, obviously not literally, but it takes away that sense of feeling protected enough to be able to interact with another human being. But when you've had a shame attack, you feel so useless, helpless, hopeless, and nasty that you don't feel fit for human consumption. And I'm very lucky that I have a few friends who I can actually say, you know what, I'm triggered as fuck. Please be gentle with me today. And they know what that means. And I know what it means when they say it to me. And I would really encourage you to have those kind of open dialogues, because we all get triggered, we all get prickly, and we all have days, some of us more than others, but we all have days where people are scary. They have the power to floor us, to crush us, to destroy the tiny threads of confidence we might be hanging on to. Not because they're bad, but because they are running their own patterns. They've got their own shit going down. Okay? Okay, so I mean, I think that's mainly it about triggers and dysregulation, okay? I would love for you to ask me any questions. As I've often said, I do this, I was going to say 20 hours a day. It probably isn't far off that. So I talk about this all of the time. So forgive me if I go a bit fast, if I've used any jargon. Don't hesitate. Give it back to me now and let me make more sense of it to you and your individual situations. The universe has got you showing up here for a reason today. And if you're not here on the live, because we get an awful lot of people now watching afterwards, you have been called. Something in you has been called, and the universe has conspired to bring this wisdom to you for a reason. What do you think that reason is? How would your life be different if you were using these triggers, if you really understood your dysregulation and you were healing it? It will make a marked change. It will allow you to feel joy unbridled. It would allow you to get rid of your perfectionism, because perfectionism, remember, is the highest order of self-abuse. Do not allow yourself perfectionism. It destroys joy. It destroys creativity. There is no place in a healthy system, because we've got to be prepared to fail. Everybody who's achieved anything has failed. It's not actually, I don't know why they even call it fail. It's just learning. That's all that failure is. It's I tried that, that bit worked, but that one really didn't work. Okay, how can I use that to grow my wisdom? If you look at all the great scientists, and I can't remember the numbers, but I think it's like Thomas Edison I think it is 1,100 failures before he perfected the light bulb. Now, if he was a perfectionist, he would have given up after 2 tries. So just remember that. You've got to be prepared to enjoy your failures. You could say to me, well, you're a bit of a failure as a coach, Michelle. You've been doing all this 20 years, and there you get triggered by a bloody umbrella scene. That's not failure. That is just absolute gift that was brought up so that I could share this today, so that I could also yet more rejection and unlovability just came up to be popped. And what happened was I felt the heart shift. And since then, I've been back again, bouncing around like Tigger. And I've had piano sonatas, are they? And people, my clients this week have been extraordinary. It's a direct response to my healing. And yet they didn't know anything about it, because we're all connected energetically. When you shift, they shift. It's the law. And as powerful as you are, you don't even come close to the universal laws and the powers. You can't change those. They've been going for, I think, 13 billion years. So what questions might you have for me?
I have a question, if it's all right to ask.
Yeah, of course. Is that Leanne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask about when you feel triggered, and I definitely resonate with everything that you've said today. And I've been working quite hard at healing my inner child and coming into recognition of dysregulation and trying to recognize my behaviors, and I'm able to identify those now. And so my question is about what to do when we recognize that we're dysregulated. And you talked about two things. One was offering self-comfort and reassurance and patience, understanding, compassion. And then you also talked about a much deeper healing place where you hold the younger, go back to that first feeling that you have, assuming that you can identify what the feeling is, but just to, I assume, trust what comes from your intuition, trust the memory that comes up, that will be the right one. Yeah,
The memory is always the right one.
Okay, so then go back to that memory and offer, hold the
space.
Hold the space so that you can, and offer love and compassion then to your younger self and to the person that first experienced that memory. But you said you won't be able to achieve that healing, that of the trauma response, as I understood it, whilst you're in dysregulation. So do we sort of have to purge? Are you suggesting that we purge the dysregulation, or that during the dysregulation you offer compassion, and then at the end of the dysregulation, when you feel more regulated, then you move to the second stage?
Two different things. So thank you for a great question. So the first thing is that when you're dysregulated, you're showing yourself compassion by allowing the dysregulation. Because what we try and do is we try and get rid of the feeling. Okay, dysregulation is so awful that you will do anything you can. You won't even realize you're doing it, or you may. But after you process this coaching, you will recognize much more when it's happening to you, and you might be shocked how often it happens and how powerfully it dictates so much of your behavior. Okay, so as Leanne says, the first thing is that when you are physically dysregulated, you allow yourself to feel it. Let it run through your body. It's going to feel like electricity. Okay? You could find that your heart beats fast. You're going to be restless. You could feel wired. And you are going to allow it. You do not say, I can't feel like this. I've got a meeting tomorrow. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to drink. I'm going to do this, whatever. Okay? All you're doing is you're prolonging the agony. Allow it to run through your body. This is trauma energy. It's stuck from years ago as well. So allow it to run through your body. Now remember that 20% of your brain only responds to physical touch. So when you're doing the compassion piece on your dysregulation, take your hand and firmly stroke the center of your chest. It's your heart chakra. Very soothing, okay? For as long as you need to do. Wrap yourself up in a beautiful blanket. The body loves hugs. The body, if you've got a weighted blanket, they really work with trauma, okay? If you don't, pasty yourself up in your best cashmere blanket. And what I mean by that is roll yourself really tight. Okay, so they call it swaddling with its kids. Why do we swaddle a baby? Because it calms down its nervous system. We're no different, okay? So you show yourself that kind of compassion. And if you want to just curl up on the sofa in your softest dressing gown, you hear that I'm talking a lot about texture here. Very, very important. You want soft, safe, cozy, comfortable, warm. If you're dysregulated, probably best not to go and do anything that is high octane. Stay soft, stay gentle, okay? Now you take, when you've come down from the highest part of the dysregulation, you go back to a younger you. That younger you could be 25. They're not always babies, by the way. Really important. Often I work with people on their inner children, and we have quite a brood, and then all of a sudden we'll move to that they did, you know, something happened when they were 23, 33. So, you know, although we call it inner child, it's actually younger you. And you just, the more trauma you have in your life, the more of these memories will come up, by the way. Okay, so that's why I'm still at it. There's a fair amount, because not only was I traumatized as a child, but like most of us, what I did is I have regurgitated, I have taken responsibility for creating the own traumas in my life. Because as Rachel said, you create what you know. What else? Really important, and I know I've said it, but I've got to say it again. It's counterintuitive. You allow the feeling of dysregulation. You make space. You do not try and hurry it up. You do not beat yourself up. You do not try and make yourself feel better. You just allow. Okay? The other thing you said there, Leanne, was if I can identify the emotion, I want you to become really smart at identifying emotions. I've had a couple of emotional wheels created, one for children, which has got smileys and colors on it and stuff, and one for adults. If you want anything like that to help you, then just email Lisa, and that's lisa@michellezelli.com, and she will make sure that that comes out to you. And while I'm on that subject, I'm going off at a little bit of a tangent, but one of my clients this week was talking about homeschooling, and she has an assembly for her children. She's got 3 beautiful children every morning, and her assembly is each of them have the emotional wheel. They identify which emotion they're in, where they hold it in their body. They set an affirmation. They set an intention for the day. They do a little meditation, and then she just mixes it up a bit. And her children go to extraordinarily good private school. And now she has decided this has been so successful, she's homeschooling. She's taking them out of school. Isn't that incredible? And that's something that brought up that memory where when we become emotionally smart, when we understand what emotions we're running, and as parents, we've got an obligation to teach our children emotional savvy, intelligence, connection. I don't care how good your A levels are. If you are not emotionally intelligent, you're going to have a hell of a hard life. And Yale and Harvard have both done studies, and they have accredited 70% of success to EQ, not IQ. You know, they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's actually not who you know, but how you relate and connect with them, how you use your emotional intelligence. And, you know, that's been one of the toughest things for me, because when you weren't, when in fact you were brought up with emotional unintelligence, and I'm being polite, or emotional abuse, you're learning emotional intelligence, not from ground zero, but from -50. So give yourself a break. You're not going to get it perfect. This is a process. That's what life, you know, this journey is of growth, of keep learning. So thank you for your question, Leanne. Have I answered it fully? Thank you. Okay. Who else has got something for me? Anything. It doesn't have to be about triggers. Anything that I can help you with right now. Anybody struggling with COVID, the new world, the new order, anything spiritual? Is the universe up to her mischief? I think we've got Natalie. Can we have some sound for Natalie, please, DJ? Thank you.
I found this really helpful, by the way. I've been to counselling in the past, and I actually feel like this one session has resonated much more strongly with me, so thank you. Sometimes for me, I mean, I definitely get triggered a lot, and I've found it's definitely only more recently, like the last 5 years of my life, it suddenly popped out of nowhere. I was always very confident, very outgoing, and then I still think that's a problem where I haven't actually worked out what triggered it. And when you say it comes in waves, for me, I almost feel like it's paralyzed me non-stop. It's always not really badly, like a lot of my friends say they don't even notice it, and I just feel like it's always humming in the background, which has affected not only my relationships with people I feel very comfortable with, who've nourished me, and we have excellent friendships, but work as well. And I'm just wondering, you know, for me personally, the thing that I notice most is eye contact. I feel like I can't look people in the eye a lot, which you know, definitely affects my work, but more upsetting, even sometimes it pops up with my family, who I feel very comfortable with. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice for that, because I think eye contact is key. I hate it when I look at someone, I feel like they're seeing everything that's going on in my head, and obviously they're not. And then that's when it paralyzes you, and you feel like you can't talk, and it's really horrible. But it's only popped up suddenly. It sounds like a long time of the past 5 years, but before then, I'm 37 now, you know, I had a very happy life, I was very peaceful minded, and then suddenly it just triggered. I still can't work out what it was, which was why I found counselling not very helpful, because I wanted to know why this had happened. And yeah, just wondering if you had any advice for that. Sorry, I'm waffling.
Of course I have. Thank you. So loads there. Thank you very much. So the first thing is that it's almost certain that it didn't just start, that prior to you being 32, that there was some masking going on. And I could, you know, often what we're able to do, or what we do in our 20s and 30s, is we party it into submission. Intensity pushes down triggers. But it's interesting, because as we get older, the triggers seem to get more powerful. It's as though our unconscious mind says, we are now going to force you to grow. We're going to stop you in your tracks till you heal this, okay? You don't need to know what the trigger was, by the way, okay? When you think you need to know something, you are in ego. And ego stops more healing than anything else. Your ego does not want you to heal. Your ego likes the status quo. It likes things just as they are. It likes what it knows, and it likes the fact that it can control you, okay? Ego comes through as distractibility, irritability, doubt, fear, worry, boredom. Really important that you know those ego behaviors. Somebody will say to me, oh, you know what, I'm so bored. Somebody said to me in session once, I've only had it once, but I did laugh. She said, oh, I'm so bored. And it's like, trust me, there is nothing but anyone that's had a session with me. I'm a lot of things, but boring isn't one of them, right? And immediately I knew this was her ego just go, whoa, this girl's getting too close to the nub. So you see, what's happened is you have focused on the why, okay? So you've created a spaghetti tangle of thoughts, and you've just gone round and round in circles. And when you can't get to the why, you get cross. You get cross with yourself. You're not that smart, are you? The therapists are crap. And they might be, I'm not saying they're not, but this is how the ego works, okay? Everybody's got an ego. A healthy ego is very, very important. Most of us, particularly those of us who've been abused or neglected in any way, our egos made us survive. Our egos are the one that pushed through. And therefore, one of the jobs in adulthood is understanding the ego and its defenses, okay? And just taking back control. So you said that you feel paralyzed and it's constantly there. Now, what happens is, do you remember I said to you the prefrontal cortex shuts down and we've got a fear center, okay? The amygdala. What you're describing is that you have a scanning for danger operating 24/7. It's called hypervigilance.
Yeah.
Still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so even when you got your feet up and you're in a bar and everything's fabulous, there's a tiny little part of you that is scanning the environment. Yeah? Does this sound familiar?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Great. If the next level to that, and I'm one of these, is I go in anywhere, the first thing I know is the exit. Unconsciously, I always find an exit because I always want to be able to escape. And it's from a house, it's from a club, it's from a bar, it's from a contract. I do nothing until I know I've got an escape route. And if anybody's got high trauma levels, that's a really important safety catch for you. Okay, wherever you go, whatever you're doing, don't apologize for it. Just, this is who you are. And remember that these are the wounds that are going to create your wisdom. Okay, so now you've got your scanner and hypervigilance, which, by the way, is exhausting.
Yeah.
Okay, when does it ever get to switch off? For me, it was when I did cocaine. That was the only thing that switched it off. Just, ask yourself, what do I do to get respite from that hypervigilance? Okay. Now, what this means is that when you were a child, there was some unsafety, and that you had to be aware. You had to know. So it might have been that you could tell by the tone of the footprint on the gravel drive, you could tell what mood somebody was in, or the energy that was in the room, that let you know whether it was safe or not. But of course, it doesn't matter whether it's safe or not, because you don't know when it's going to become unsafe. So that's where we get that radar. Still with me, everybody? Yeah, tell me if I'm going too quickly. Is this making sense for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So the humming in the background is your nervous system, my darling. It's telling you that you're wired. Okay, so you need to be breathing. You need to develop. You need to speak to Andre Barry there. You need to develop a meditation practice. TM is fantastic. It's scientifically proven. And Andre does great free connections and things, don't you, Andre? Do you still do that?
Yes.
And we can hook you up if you're interested. But you'd be in extremely good hands. Now, you're also talking that you could have something called reactive attachment disorder. Now, that is something where only special people have that, okay? And it's where attachment came with danger, okay? And that danger could be criticism, attack, humiliation, rejection, over and over and over again. So you were taught that any attachment to a human being is dangerous. So as soon as somebody gets too close, then there's that pushback. I don't know you well enough to know if that is what happens for you, but I want you, it's something that you would be well served. Have your therapist not talked about any of this?
Yeah, a little bit, not this in depth, no.
Okay. Look, Google reactive attachment. I don't like the word disorder. It's just part of being human. I have to put the disorder on, otherwise you won't pick it up on Google.
You just said it was anxiety stemmed from childhood, yeah.
Okay, look, anxiety is not an emotion in its own right. And I've got to be really clear about this. Anybody who suffers with anxiety, you've got unprocessed emotions underneath it. Anxiety is not the problem. And people are spending so much time and effort and money focusing on anxiety. Actually, what's under there for you, I think, is shame and grief, is what I'm picking up mainly. Okay? Focus, whenever anxiety, the greater your anxiety, the greater the gift to go underneath. Do not focus on the anxiety. It's a bit like if you rage, don't focus on the rage, get into the shame. Okay? It happens at work, it happens with friends. It's going to happen depending on how triggered you are. Have you gone? Oh, I've lost her. She wasn't triggered.
I don't know where she's gone.
No. That's a first. But I'm going to keep going anyway, because any question that you ask is for everybody. It's not just for you. So when you feel unsafe with people is when you're going to act out, is when you're going to go into anxiety, but or you behave badly, or you shame yourself. All of these different routes, okay? Don't focus on the behaviors. Go underneath to the root cause. That's where your healing is. I was going to ask Natalie, if she was comfortable in isolation, I suspect she really likes it because it's safe and her scanner, her nervous system can drop down. The reason that eye contact is threatening is because, and embarrassing, is because she's riddled with shame. And if somebody looks into your eyes, we believe they can see into your soul. And if they can see into your soul, they can see into my human dysfunction.
There she is.
Okay, so she's back.
Yeah. Maybe she.
Okay. So if I'm going to say that again, if you struggle with eye contact, it's because you have fear that somebody can see into you, which means you are riddled with shame. So we go back to shame again. And my hunch is that that's the emotion that's underneath your anxiety. That's the major emotion I would work with if I was you. Did you get that, Natalie? That last bit about eyes?
My battery ran out halfway through.
Oh, I triggered you. I nearly had a shame attack live then.
Sorry, no, don't worry. I can pick it up separately. Okay. Carry on.
Okay, so, but I was talking about why eye contact, really important. Do go and pick that up because it's a game changer for you.
Well, thank you. Really helpful, really helpful.
You're very, very welcome. And try this out. Go play with it. And then we've got another one of these in 2 weeks. And this is true for everybody. Go play with this stuff. Come back and throw stuff at me and let me help you. Let me help you grow and flow. Who else has got a question or feedback or anything else you'd like to say? Janice.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, you touched on perfectionism, saying about it is the highest level of
Self-abuse.
Self-abuse. Okay, right. I think I need to get my son to have a chat with you because he is a huge perfectionist on every level. And I could not work out what it was all about. So
Okay. So underneath the perfectionism, he believes that he's a flawed individual. And so what happens is that we either become superhuman or subhuman. Superhuman, everything I do has to be perfect. I have to be an overachiever. Okay? Subhuman, okay. I'm shit, I'm worthless, I can't do anything. Now, many of us exotic creatures, we waver from one to the other. You know, one day I can walk on water, the next day I can barely do up a pair of shoelaces. And that's okay. I keep saying this is part of being human. It's just nobody's talking about it. Okay? So, and you know, you think about being superhuman, regardless of having a poor education and not much of a start in life, I did very, very well in corporate, in business. Why? Because that superhuman quality pushed me to always overachieve. Does that make sense? So
no.
For me, it really helped me. It was a painful way to do it. So we always want to look what is working for us, because sometimes our wounding, our behavior out of our wounding, it's not all bad. Sometimes it's serving us. We always want to be conscious. What do we want to keep? What do we want to leave?
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's a book that I think the thing to look at is where he feels subhuman. What is it about him that doesn't feel good enough? That's what
his height.
Okay, his height, that's a projection. Okay, if he felt good about himself inside, he would know that Tom Cruise, Prince, God knows who, Johnny Depp, listen, height, short men, they try harder. We all know that. They're apparently better in bed.
I'm not telling him that.
Oh, just an aside.
Okay, no, that's helpful. That's a good start for me.
Okay, yeah, it's literally perfectionism is so that nobody can see our frailties, our damaged self. One thing I wanted to come back to you on, Natalie, do you find that you're enjoying isolation and lockdown? No.
No, I love it.
You do, yeah. That's what I wanted to just come.
Wow, I don't love it, but there are times where I'm really bored and I want to go out and socialise. I miss my friends, definitely. But
It's safe.
that's loving being with my husband and my boy. Yeah.
It's safe. Your nervous system's cosseted, and there's no pressure to be or do anything. So many of us are thriving. We're really thriving in this scenario. So, you know, it's not all bad for everybody. Thanks for the question, Jan. Anybody else got anything for me?
Michelle, can I just ask you one thing?
Anything.
And I know this is stuff that you and I have spoken about before, but obviously all your triggering stuff's just kind of brought it. So you obviously saw my rant on Sunday night on Facebook about Boris. I was so angry, I cannot tell you how. And obviously listening to what you said, something had happened on Sunday morning that had triggered that off. But obviously by the end of the day, I was so angry about, now I sort of understand, and sort of at the time did because of the work we've done before, that actually it wasn't really about that. But that was how I had got to that point, just going, oh my God, this is just crazy. Like I had a total rant on Facebook about it. And then spent the next 2 days just feeling like really...
What was that? What did you feel?
I was angry. I was frustrated, but obviously now listening to everything that you've said, looking back, it really was about what had happened on Sunday morning. Now that was to do with a person, like you said, no one can make you feel that way. And I understand the whole kind of like what it was about and the emotions and stuff like that. But when you do recognise what the problem was, and actually it wasn't really about Boris Johnson and what he'd said and all of that stuff, it was about what happened in the morning. And I get all of the kind of, you know, self-soothing and understanding, you know, your inner child and all of that kind of stuff. And I know we have spoken about this before, but my feeling would be now to address that with that person. Is that something, because then there's part of me that just thinks, God, then it's just going to make everything escalate again and become worse. And so with triggers in certain situations, how do you address them, not address them, if it is to be with a particular person that has said or done something that has triggered that, if that makes sense?
So did you give them the bullet, or did you give them a gun and they fired it? Okay, because sometimes we unconsciously create the trigger. So just going back, being completely honest with yourself, no judgment, did you give them the gun? Did you know that having this person, could you have anticipated this is what would have happened?
It doesn't surprise me what happened. However, I don't feel that I gave that. Do you know what I mean? It just came.
Okay, so it doesn't surprise me. That helped
person to get that reaction, if you know what I mean. That I just want that reaction from that person.
Okay, but you said it doesn't surprise you.
No.
Okay, so now what we have here is somebody's behaved as them. Still with me? But it shocked you. It took you off guard. Does that make sense? It didn't surprise me they behaved like that, but I wasn't prepared for it. So one thing I'd look at there was people behave like I behave like Michelle, you behave like Rachel, yeah? So I can predict roughly how you're going to respond to something. And if I expect you to suddenly behave like somebody else, who's the crazy one here? Okay, so base your expectation on evidence of history, not la la land. I hope they'll change. Remember, I texted that friend, and there was a little part of me that hoped that she would turn into Mama Goddess. Don't be ridiculous. Of course she wasn't going to. Okay, so you could have wanted to unconsciously create this because you needed some intensity in your life, because there's something coming up that you don't want to feel, or there's some emptiness that you don't want to face. That's the first thing. Okay. The next thing is that you said angry and frustrated. They're the same thing. So anger means I'm not getting my needs met. Okay, whenever you're angry, you're perceiving that your needs aren't being met. So now you have a choice. You'll notice that anger is the only emotion that makes you feel stronger. So the reason, the idea is that you're now going to put a boundary down. If you're not, so what I would say to you, Rachel, as far as going back to that person, is what would be the benefit to you? Okay, so is it somebody that you connect with on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Okay, then you probably do need to. What I would urge you not to do is to ever make any decisions or go back to somebody when you are dysregulated, because it is going to be a punch up or tears. I mean, it's hysteria. Wait till you're calm, okay, you're re-regulated, and then use a boundary pattern. So you acknowledge the person with something positive, you tell them the issue, and then you offer a suggestion for a solution with some gratitude. So Rachel, it's always great to see you. You know, we're always on a good vibe. When you stamped on my foot on Sunday, it really hurt, and please don't do that again. And I really appreciate you taking that on board. Okay, now I didn't make any of that about the other person. Did you see what I did there? I owned how I feel about it. I told them unapologetically, but politely and respectfully. And I've offered up a solution. Please, let's not do that again. Okay. And so you make that choice, but preempt how you're going to handle it. Don't just go into it, because your body is going into battle. So that's why you want to preempt it. But also think, if I talk to this person, what do I want out of that conversation? You always want to set an intention for clarity.
And supposing you know that even doing it that way would not necessarily be received that well, do you think it should still be addressed, or is it just one of those that you just
I don't really care whether it's received well or not. I mean, that's how somebody receives something is their business, not yours. Mm. And if somebody isn't up for having a conversation, you know, an open conversation, then that's their stuff. It's not yours, darling. I think the thing to remember is you're always respectful and polite. Always. And, you know, they might have just been having a bad day. Their wound was hanging out. They were triggered. You know, this stuff is complicated. There's no doubt about that. It's easy. It's simple, but it's complex. There's a lot of different angles to it. So this person's defensive. They're defending a wound, okay? That sounds like a perfectionist wound. Would that be right that they're defending? They like to be right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if they're not allowed to be wrong or make a mistake, it means that they're riddled with shame. You're going to spotlight their humanity. Now, if you spotlight their humanity, the chances are they're going to have, here we go back, we're going to have a dysregulation, a trigger.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's not your business. So you say it really politely, really respectfully, and then what the other person does with it is their business.
Okay.
Okay. I've had a situation where a few people that I'm quite close to are into the conspiracy theories, and I've just sent a text saying, please don't include me in any of the, I don't want that vibe in my inbox. And I've pissed some people off. But that's my truth. And you know, if we don't protect our vibe, if we don't protect our surroundings, our environment, then we've got to take responsibility for what's showing up for us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any more for any more?
Could I just ask one more thing about moving forward with the work that I'm trying to do for myself? I think that there are some experiences that I've had that I don't remember. And I don't know whether they are this life. I don't know whether they're inherited. I don't know. I'm open to that possibility now, which I wasn't for a long time. But what's the best means of therapeutic work or therapy or other sort of healing environments that I could put myself in to explore those?
Why do you need to remember?
Why do I need to remember? I don't need to remember the experience, but I feel that there are barriers that are stopping me from growing. I feel like I've got unhealed wounds, which I really want to use the word purge again, because I heard you use it, and I think it probably fits quite well in what I'm trying to say.
You don't need to remember anything to heal a wound, the
Okay.
deep wound. And again, that's ego. That's ego needing to know. Okay. What you need to do is you need to work on the feeling.
Yeah.
Okay. So the wound will show up in a feeling. So where do you feel worthless, hopeless? If you're doing inner child work, it's probably powerless as well. Okay. Just go with that. Now, the reason that you don't remember things is that the brain has this incredible little pocket that it puts trauma in, and it shuts the door so that it protects us, and particularly up to the age of 8. Often after the age of 8, we get a memory. Are your memories before, pre or post 8?
I think pre.
Okay. So it makes perfect sense. So what you do is you just do your inner child work. I would use a guided meditation, and you just start to allow that inner child to be. Just allow her to show herself to you in all of her humanity. You know, whether she's crying on the floor, or whether she's terrified, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And you just connect to her through the feeling. Now, what happens most of the time with clients is, as they become more comfortable with the connection with that inner child, that traumatized child, the memories often come back. Not always, and it doesn't matter. Do not waste your time or your money trying to do regression or anything else. It could be past life. It absolutely could. It could be generational threads. So as I said to you, it comes down 7 years. Now, there's on Friday nights at 7:30 on Facebook, on Twitch, excuse me, Intuity International run a free healing. He's my own energy healer. I've been using him for over 10 years. And he's just started doing these amazing healings. I would highly recommend that you plug in for an hour and a half. You can get them also download. He asks for a tiny or doesn't say tiny, but he asks for a donation if you see fit, but that's all. And it's really extraordinary stuff. I had a fantastic heart opening doing that last night.
That's great. Thank you very much. I don't want to relive the experience and relive the trauma. I just want to fix what it's created in me that I don't want to have anymore.
Okay, so try and avoid words like fix. It makes it sound like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay.
You're absolutely as you should be. The universe knows perfection. The universe only creates perfection. You've been given these wounds because there is a job for you further down the line. I can't tell you what it is, where you're going to need this wisdom.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Yes, hello. Who have I got there?
Oh,
hello.
Hello. Okay.
Hi. Thank you for your time. That was really helpful. You gave some really good advice a couple of weeks ago about how to help children through this, which I've been using. So that was really good, about embracing the change. I think as we progress through it, mental health, you know, I think those cracks are starting to appear. We're reading about it in the news. Is there any advice you could give about, you know, what we could do to protect our children's mental health? I loved the example of the morning assembly that you gave.
It's about getting creative. It's about connecting with them. It's about being real. And really coming at this from a place, you know, the virus won't break us, but it will show us what's broken and what we need to fix. And for me, it's about talking to kids about a new world, a brave new world. How are we going to change things? What is our part in this? And to see it as a positive thing. Because if you're down on it, if you're moaning about it, if you're scared of it, trust me, your kids will be. So any emotions that they bring up, they're gifts.
Yeah.
You
can't. Yeah, you can't.
And have that, angel cards or some sort of, they're pretty cards that you just pull out every day, and it's got a lovely thought or saying. They're wonderful. I'm sure they do them for children. I haven't
got some, yeah.
Children, but I certainly use them with clients. They're just another way to affirm ourselves, to affirm our reality is safe. And, change is scary to most people because people like to be certain. They like to be in control. And we're not certain, and we're not in control. And you're seeing a lot of rage come up, and you're going to see even more. Keep your vibe clean. And what I mean by that is don't engage in the not know it. And I go back to the ego. We need to know where COVID comes from. Well, what good's that? It's not going to change anything for anybody on this. No. That's ego. That's ego nonsense, and it's causing a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah, agree.
Stay with what your kids and you can control. What you do know, you can control your own environment.
Yeah.
That's the only thing your children need. They need some routine. They need some certainty. They need connection. They're going to look at you for how you are navigating this storm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I do tend to paint a big smile on in the morning, regardless of how I'm feeling.
Okay. Now, I want to just bring that up because a child can feel your energy. So if your energy is sad, and they run up to you and say, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, are you crying?" You're, no, I'm fine. What you're saying is your intuition can't be trusted.
Yeah, good point.
So it's actually, I can totally understand because it makes sense to want to protect them, but you're not. What you're actually doing there is you're teaching them that what they believe to be, what they feel, isn't valid. Well, one of the greatest gifts and superpowers any human has is their intuition. Yeah. And once you've got an on-point intuition, and I know Andre and I laugh about this a lot, we make decisions, completely insane decisions, from our gut. So, Rachel will tell you, I came down here for a weekend, phoned her up, and 3 days later bought a place down here. I hadn't even looked at the area. I had no intention of living by the sea. It was literally, I knew my intuition, and that's so powerful. It allows us to make fast decisions or just stay on beam. Okay, so be honest. Teach them how to be sad, that it's okay to be sad. Teach them that it's okay to be scared. How do you process that? Use the emotional wheel. Do an assembly. Where do they feel it in their body? What would they like to do with that fear? Make it into a person. Draw it. Get creative. Okay, you're frozen on me there. Did you get that? Yeah. Okay. So
much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Lovely to see you all.
That's
Thank
really
you, Sasha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a wonderful, wonderful couple of weeks.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for showing up. It means a lot. And we will be back here in 2 weeks' time, won't we, Rach? And if there's anything you want me to cover, just send it over to Rach so that I can do a little bit of prep for you. For anything, there's nothing too small, too big. Nothing's out of bounds. Okay. Lovely to see you, Andre. Thanks for showing up.
Wonderful to see you too. Oh, it's a pleasure listening to you. Really well. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Michelle, can I just say, every session I've had with you, I've always come away feeling calm and cool. And thank you very much.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. It's lovely, Tina. Thank you. I will see you in a couple of weeks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Now.
Bye.